But what I want to talk about here is understanding veterans. Because there's so many people out there that I don't think completely understand veterans and the state of mind, if you will, of veterans. A lot of times you'll hear of a veteran that has a 100% rating at the VA that never saw combat. That happens. That happens a lot. And let me explain to you. It all starts back to early childhood. And look, I've done 242 podcasts, and the majority of the folks I have on my podcast are war heroes. They're great men and women. They're veterans. They have some value and some meaning to bring to the table, which is why I have them on to share it with the rest of the world to perhaps improve the quality of their life. It's my job to add value where we can add meaning and value. So it all begins in early childhood. You've got a kid growing up in a broken home. And let me tell you, the majority of the veterans that I have on my podcast, over 90% of them didn't have a father in their life. And I'm speaking primarily about Marines. Same could be said about soldiers, a little bit different in the Air Force, and I'm not sure about the Navy. I haven't had a lot of experience knowing the backgrounds of early childhood development from folks that do in the Navy. But I do know Marines. So I'm going to speak on that. Over 90% of the folks that I have interviewed on my podcast and that I personally know, having been around the Marine Corps for well over 30 years, didn't have a father in their life. So you have an early childhood kid that's growing up in a broken home, doesn't have a father in their life, single mom, 1, 2, 3 jobs. This child is now out on their own. They're learning to cook for themselves. They're cleaning the house. They're trying to get those reward points from mom. I lived this life. And I could also speak from the experience. I grew up quick. I had to take care of my brother. So what did I end up doing? Well, I ended up fighting through school, ended up in alternative school, saw some traumatic stuff, went through some traumatic stuff as a kid. Things that'll always be with me for the rest of my life. And by the time you get to boot camp, you're already broken. You're broken. The majority of folks that go to boot camp are already broke. This is why they are looking for something bigger than them to join and be a part of. A lot of the times they're looking for that father figure they never had in their life. Maybe I could find it in the Marine Corps. Maybe I could mentor somebody who's larger than life. Going in and see them sergeants with them green belts on, looking squared away, and you look at that man and say, I want to be him. That's who I want to be. So you're carrying all this baggage with you. You're carrying all this trauma with you through boot camp. You get broken down there and you keep it all in. And then you get to the fleet. And one of two things can happen. You're either gonna, stay, in garrison, and you're gonna, be a stateside Marine. You may do some deployments overseas in some non-combat areas, or you're gonna go into a combat zone. That can be, anywhere in the world. And sometimes folks see additional trauma on top of the trauma that they already brought into the military with them. So when you have veterans that are struggling and going through life challenges and trying to overcome those obstacles, a lot of it can be directly connected to their childhood, and the military or other traumatic type events that happen in their life will just add to the pain, and it adds to the discomfort of whatever that veteran is going through. And oftentimes they ignore it. I ain't gonna get the help I need. I'm not gonna get the help I need because I'm a man. I can't show my weakness. And then it ends up becoming this out of control wrecking ball. And then you hit this crisis event, and then you let it all out. And oftentimes it's going to end up putting that veteran in a really bad place. Could be locked up, cuffed, stuffed, in front of your family, friends. Could be a DUI, substance abuse, drug, alcohol abuse, losing your family, ending up on the streets, ending up doing some things that you could have never really ever imagined. But, again, in my eyes, seeing so many of these veterans that are suffering on a daily basis, but they don't tell anybody about it. They open up to me because they see me as a man that would probably understand where they're coming from. And there's not a whole lot of guys out there that would really understand where they're coming from. And I'm very easily accessible. I've got my website, briantalley.com. I've been a volunteer since 2017. I used to make good money. I was living the American dream prior to January of 2016 until it all stopped. My life damn near ended. I've been picking up the pieces ever since. But one thing I've done is I've studied the veteran community. And there's so much involved in it here. So they get out, they start to transition out of the military, and now they've got their childhood baggage, they've got their active duty military experience baggage, and now they're heading out into the civilian world, so they're going right back into it, but now they've got all this stuff that they've just kept in their pack. And not a lot of it has come out. And again, another reason why they reach out to me, they don't want to reach out to their good buddies, a lot of them, because those are their drinking buddies. Can't show that weakness, right? Especially when you're out on the street, out on the town. Can't let that guy know. Let's see, what's this? More creators want to join the co-host. I don't know what's going on here. I've never really done one of these Facebook lives before when it comes to... so I'm very new at this. I'm getting all these... Let's see. All right. I don't know where I was at here. So the veterans get out into the civilian world, and again, they're carrying all this, baggage and all that stuff, and they begin to go through several things. They can go through, what am I going to do for the rest of my life? How is the VA going to help me get through the recovery, perhaps, that I need? A lot of veterans suffer from anxiety. They suffer from depression, post-traumatic stress. And like I said, it's not always military related. The military can add to it, but the additional stresses and the stressors came from early childhood. And that's neglect, that's seeing things that kids shouldn't see. And again, these kids take it with them all the way into their adulthood, and they don't know how to unpack it. Go to the VA. A lot of the times it's delayed and denied care. They're not getting the help they need from the VA, which oftentimes leads again to veterans removing themselves, from this world, which we are fighting a big time epidemic right now, 22 to 40 a day. And every single time that happens, we lose more and more patriotism in this country. These are the folks that raised their right hand and swore to uphold and defend the Constitution of the United States. And they're removing themselves every single day at a high rate because we are not taking care of our most vulnerable and at-risk community in our country. It's easy to sign them up and ship them out. But how do you bring them back and rehabilitate them if they've been through a lot of things? And again, these things don't always constitute in combat. Early childhood, military, it builds in the military, and then from there, it's that wrecking ball when you get out into the civilian world. And that's why so many veterans end up in court systems. That's why they have Veterans Court right now. Great program. But I'm trying to see if I have any comments here, because I would like to engage with some veterans that might be going through some challenging times, and I cannot see on here where there's any comments. It says I'm getting comments, but I can't see them because I probably haven't, probably don't have the right button pushed. Whatever. So anyways, understanding veterans, is definitely a struggle. And like I said, and oftentimes when they reach out to me, I'm their last ditch effort. Let's talk about the VA. Delayed and denied care. Plain and simple. We have about 9 million people in the VA system right now in the country. We have 20 million American veterans in this country. And less than half use the VA. Because that means that the other half either have a good job or they do not have any trust and confidence in going to the VA because they may be tired of it. They may say, nope, I'm done. I saw what they did to mom. I saw what they did to dad, brothers, me, their friends. And they say, yeah, I don't want that. Or some other veterans say, I get great care at the VA because they're not all bad. Every VA has their own leadership. You have good leadership and you have poor leadership. I do believe that the majority of the folks that are working within the VA as clinicians on the ground are looking after the veteran's best interest. A lot of the problems within the VA comes from the very top. It's top-down leadership. So the ones on the top are the ones that are setting all the policy, and setting all the rules and the guidelines for each hospital. Each hospital is ran basically independently. In that hospital, VA hospital director answers to the VA secretary. And then the VA secretary, they answer directly to Congress. And again, depending on the leadership is what you're going to get in return from whatever hospital. I know we've got some really bad ones, in Phoenix and Loma Linda in California, but I hear bad stuff from all over the country. It doesn't matter if they're a 5-star rated VA or a 1-star rated VA. Not everybody's going to always be pleased with the experience that they have at the VA hospital, and a lot of times, often, the care that veterans receive at the VA hospital is going to dictate their next move in life. Is their VA experience going to put them in a crisis situation? And it doesn't need to be a lot. It could be a slight triggering event that might put them over the edge. That's why VA police are so busy all the times within these hospitals, and it's sad. You got veterans in there that are in there because of their service-connected problems. And a lot of the service-connected problems are anger, anxiety, depression, self-isolation, substance abuse. And when you go in there and you have an appointment that's scheduled that gets canceled when you show up, which happens all the time. Doctors don't show up. The clinician called in sick. They've got transferred to another hospital. Veterans show up. They don't get a phone call. They don't get a letter. And now they're there. What do? They're going to resort back to what they know. And that's fight. Marines are trained to fight, right? And when you get pushed into a corner, it doesn't matter if you're 18 or if you're 58. Once a Marine, always a Marine. Once a soldier, always a soldier. You're trained to fight. So what's the first thing you're going to do if you're feeling threatened after you know you're in the right? Again, you're going through a crisis and triggering type event. Get the VA police coming. The VA police don't always de-escalate. A lot of the times they escalate. But we're not in a normal hospital here, folks. If we were in a normal hospital, it would make sense for a cop to go in there and be maybe a little bit more aggressive. And if you're going off on the scheduling agent that canceled your appointment, or you have some other things going on right now that you're not happy about, and so you're raising your voice and you are becoming somewhat, I don't know the word, but you are becoming more vulgar and aggressive, okay, verbally. So now that police officer needs to de-escalate this in a way to speak directly to the veteran. It's not an easy thing to do. Especially if you got somebody in there who gave their life to this country. And all they want is just some simple care. All they really want is to be seen in a timely manner, get their meds, and carry on, right? But a lot of times that ain't happening. So you got VA police coming in, and the next thing you know, you've got a fight on your hands, and we've got veterans getting arrested at the VA hospitals. It happens all the time. Why? Because they lose their bearing, because they've had enough. Then what? Well, they give up. The problem they had now has gotten 100 times worse. But here's the sad part. It came due to no fault of their own. The crisis event that they had is a direct influence. It is a direct correlation to their service-connected disability. And a lot of it is mental health. A lot of it is physical pain. Those two coincide. If your pain levels are high that day, which they could very well be, that's why you're at the VA, your anxiety levels are going to be high. Pain is so much easier to treat when you're happy. Anxiety is so much easier to treat when you're not in pain. But you're never really at the VA on great days. Oh, it's a good day. I'm going to go to the VA. You're going to go because you're not feeling well. And again, there's so many veterans out there that aren't getting the help that they need and deserve because of policy, bad policy, and politics, and veterans being used as political pawns. And unfortunately, I don't see an end in this in sight. I think what you see is what you get, and it's going to remain that way for quite some time. Now, I don't have a magic wand to wave and say, well, we're going to fix all this stuff, because trust me, the amount of emails that I get on a day, even on a daily basis, it's a lot. You got to pack it all in. You got to put yourself in the veteran's shoes. It's the way I look at it. How are you going to effectively help somebody if you don't know what they're going through? So I read this horrifying email of their story and what they're going through and the help they can't, get and receive. And I immediately just close my eyes and I put myself into that situation. And I say, man, what would I do? How can I help this guy or this gal? So you got to pack it in. And that weighs heavy on somebody that is already suffering their own battles. And then you offer again that friendly advice to hopefully get them in the right direction. And I sincerely do the best I can all the time. Resources, vetted resources. But oftentimes, they don't follow through with it. They fall deeper into despair. Pain takes over. And sadly, it's all ended as something that was so preventable from the get-go. We owe it to our nation's veterans to take care of them and to care for them and to treat their injuries. And there's so many being overlooked and ignored. But It's election season. Now I get all these politicians coming, oh, we're going to help the veterans. We're going to help the... I've been through way too many of these election cycles. You know, we all know how it works. Everybody is going to idolize who they want in Congress. They're going to, they're going to be easily influenced into saying, oh my God, this is the guy that's going to get me all of my great VA medical care. Then it doesn't happen. And then it's the same song and dance, another 2 years in Congress, and then you're gonna put all your trust, hope, and confidence into somebody else, and they're gonna let you down again. Life is full of letdowns. It just is. And another thing that is absolutely unforgivable or the amount of veterans that are denied compensation for their injuries because the VA or the government doesn't want to pay out rightful compensation to folks, to veterans that have signed on that dotted line and promised to go out and serve honorably. But, when you're in that recruiting office, they make a promise to you too. We got you. Post-service. When they don't. And look, not everybody gets bad care, but enough do to where I'm getting 500 emails a month. And I'm doing this because I'm tired. Dude, I gotta. I'm not a nonprofit. I'm just a guy that's been through the system and got absolutely destroyed by it. And again, these veterans are like, this guy's going to understand me. If anybody does, it's going to be this guy. And I could tell him everything and feel good about it, because now I'm not telling my best friend. I'm not telling my mom, my dad, my wife, my husband, whatever it may be. And they can unpack it. And then I have to unpack it. Because if I carry it, now I've got all this additional weight. And it's a lot. But you have these members of Congress and all these staffers and all these folks at the VA that are getting paid big money to help veterans, and they're not. And then you have guys like me and volunteers all over the country that aren't getting paid a red cent. Now we're not getting paid nothing. And we're the actual ones that are helping the veterans get the help they need, or the resources that they need, or maybe that quick little motivational phone call that's 3 minutes long, or perhaps reaching somebody right here. Maybe I said something 20 minutes ago that a veteran could resonate with, and that's what it's really all about. It is connecting with folks that need connecting with. It's finding those vulnerable folks out there that still have so much to offer. And they still have so much to give. But they don't know how to get there. Or maybe they're in a rut. And they can't get up. And they're stuck in quicksand. And by making themselves uncomfortable, it's going to hurt them even more mentally and emotionally, and perhaps even physically. But that's the barriers that we need to break down in making yourself uncomfortable to get better in life.
This is the Today with Tally podcast.